going on, guys? Today we're going to be installing some new suspension on the Z3 to get rid of all this wheel gap. All right, guys, it is finally time to start working on the Z3. First up is going to be suspension. I want to do suspension for a few reasons. Number one is going to be handling. Right now, the stock suspension is super soft. I can actually like push on this and it gives like crazy. So it is super soft. It does still handle pretty well around turns, but I know stiffening up that suspension and also having adjustability for dampening and having some better spring rates, it's going to do a whole world of difference for the handling. And a big second reason is for looks. Right now there is crazy wheel gap, especially in the back here, and it just makes it look so weird because the car is so small, but yet it seems like it is so high with all that wheel gap and crazy clearance underneath. It's like you could take this thing off-road and you'd be fine. But my goal for this car is definitely not off-road. I want to make this thing into a great handling car. That's the main reason why I wanted to do a small car that is light and nimble. So we want to be improving the handling on the car, and one of the best things to do is to install a set of coilovers. So here are the coilovers I purchased. These are BC Racing BR series, and these are the extreme low version. So it'll lower it a little bit more than the regular BR series. So at first glance, this does look like a pretty high quality coilover kit. I have installed a number of coilovers on previous cars, and I can kind of tell that all the welds look pretty good and the build quality in general. And the setup on this car is a traditional coilover in the front, which is a coil sitting over top of the strut, and then the rear is going to be a separate spring and strut. And then it also comes with some end links, I'm sure, because the stock ones will be too long once you lower the car. First up, I'm gonna get the car on the lift. I've never had this car on the lift since I bought it about 4 months ago. So hopefully I don't see any big surprises. Since the car is so high, I was able to get under it pretty easily before I bought it so that I could make sure there was no big rust or any issues there. Luckily, these BMWs are undercoated really well from the factory, both this and my 3 Series here. There's no rust that I've seen. So once I get this up on the lift and get the wheels off, I can start with the front. I always end up doing the front first on these because it's always a little bit more difficult. And then I will go towards the back where you have the separate spring and strut. That's usually much more simple. All right guys, a quick update. So I put everything on the car the way it came just to get a baseline. And as you can see, it was still really high. So I took some measurements. The front, I wanted to come down another inch. So I adjusted those coilovers in the front an inch lower. And now I've moved on to the back. The back, I thought I needed about 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches. And it seems like it's going to be perfect to just take the locking collars out. So that's what I did. I took the collars out. And when you do that, they provide you with this little rubber bushing that you're supposed to install for the spring to sit on. So that's basically to get the max lowering in the rear. So that's what I did here. I have that on, and then the spring will sit just like this. So now I can reinstall the rears. I'll put the wheels all back on, and then we'll see where we sit. All right guys, I got everything readjusted and back on the ground, so here is the final look. I'm pretty happy with how it looks. The front is just about perfect. There is a little bit of clearance here. I think it could rub on some really hard cornering, but these are inset a little bit, so I think I'll probably be okay. And then the rear, after I took out all of the locking collars, it's pretty low. There's no real rubbing issue in the back because it is inset much further than the front, as you can see. So there's a lot of room up in the wheel arch. So it's not near the fender. It's not going to hit the fender. The only real problem is the rear alignment is totally out of whack now. You could actually even tell before I even lowered it, there was a lot of camber in the back. And now it is just an insane amount of camber. I believe it also has some toe issues as well. So this is a common problem on Z3s and also I think all E36s in general. There's no adjustment in the rear. So where the trailing arm attaches to the rest of the car, there's no adjustment. And so when that hinges up a lot, it just gets totally out of alignment. So this is on both sides. You can see the camber is crazy. I didn't try to measure it, but it's got to be like 3 or 4 degrees. And I believe the toe is pretty far out as well. So now it's seeming like that will have to be the next thing I fix, because obviously I'm going to be looking at getting new wheels for this, but I want to get this somewhat aligned correctly before I do that, because with this much camber, there's no way I'm going to run that much camber. So it's pretty hard to even measure spacing to figure out what specs I want on the new wheels. So I think I need to fix that alignment issue first before I can pick out my new wheels. But otherwise, as far as looks, it is a huge improvement. Like I said before, it was just way too high stock, and now it really looks almost like the way it should have came from factory. I think it's a little too low in the back, but I'll get that fine-tuned once I get the alignment figured out and get new wheels on it. And as far as handling, I did get a chance to take it out a little bit yesterday. Today it's raining, so I haven't taken it out yet. But from initial first impressions, it seems super tight around corners. I would say better handling than any car I've ever had. This is so small and light and just short wheelbase. It just feels like basically a go-kart. And I did set all of the dampening adjustment right to the middle just to get a baseline of feel. So I'm going to drive it a bunch more, let everything settle out, and then I can start to fine-tune the dampening as well. So let me know what you think of the new look, the new addition to the Z3, the first ever mod to the Z3. So now I can say my only stock car is the E46. For now, it is just a daily, but I think that thing will need modded sooner or later. Also, let me know what you think about wheels. This has 16s on it now. I'll definitely be going up to at least 17s, possibly 18s. I think 18s sometimes can look a little too big on this car since it is so small. The only problem with 17s is it's hard to get really nice wide wheels with good specs, because there's just more options out there in the 18-inch diameter. So that's going to be it for today. I'm glad I got the first mods done on the Z3, and it's only going to get crazier from here.